Welcome to Demystifying the Metaphysical, here to help you find more compassion in your life. Today, we're going to be looking at all the not-so-random lines and marks on your hand and the meaning behind them. Every hand is unique. No two hands are the same. Even your right hand and left hand will have different lines and marks from one another. I believe that there are no such thing as random when it comes to our life. We're all gifted with different talents, and life puts challenges on our path to help us grow. It sounds exhausting, doesn't it? But think of the feeling you get when you've accomplished something great, something maybe you didn't think you could do. It's truly an amazing feeling. And for those that are superstitious, know that you can change the lines on your hands. Someone who was told by a palm reader that they'll be rich and famous will have a hard time getting there if they don't apply their talents and work for it. We'll find out what some of the potential signs of fame and fortune are later in the video. We're going to start off by looking at different signs on the Mount of Jupiter, which is the space right below the index finger. There's the potential for a lot of different markings here on this mount, so it might be hard to find, but look carefully to see if you see a square. The square doesn't have to be perfectly closed off. The lines can extend beyond the square. If a person has a square on the Mount of Jupiter, they're likely to be a gifted teacher or lecturer. Have you ever had a teacher that just made the most boring subjects interesting? These people truly have a talent imparting knowledge onto others. Here's an example of a teacher's square where the yellow circle is. The next sign on the Mount of Jupiter is the Ring of Solomon. This is a semicircle line. A person with this ring might often get told by others what an old soul they are and are usually mature beyond their years. They also have the ability to tune into the feelings of others, and sometimes they might even have psychic abilities. Even if they aren't into the metaphysical world, they'll likely be interested in the psychological makeup of people. This line is often found on psychologists, social workers, and counselors. If the ring is present on both hands, the person is likely to be very warm and compassionate, someone people feel comfortable confiding in. If the ring is only present on the dominant hand, the person has made great efforts to be more understanding of others. The other version of this ring is a straight line shown by the green line. This line is called the line of sympathy. In general, when lines are straight as opposed to being curved, it adds reason and logic to the characteristics. A person with the line of sympathy will take a logical approach in helping others solve their problems, rather than using their intuition or feelings. Here's an example of the line of sympathy where the yellow circle is. Moving into the space between the index finger and the middle finger, a loop between these two fingers is called the Raja loop. This loop isn't common. Traditionally, this loop was found on hands of nobility. The modern interpretation of this loop is someone who is charismatic, has executive presence, and is drawn to positions of prestige and power. Now let's move to the Mount of Saturn, the space right below the middle finger. Like the Girdle of Venus, which we'll explore shortly, if you have this ring, it's better for it to be thin and broken, as a deep ring here could block the positive aspects of the Saturn characteristics like stability and hard work. If a person has a deep ring, they could benefit from being more optimistic and lighthearted, as the lines can change. Here we have the Girdle of Venus. Like the Ring of Saturn, if you have this line, it's better for the line to be thin and broken, and it often is fragmented, as that'll mean that the person will be less likely affected by things that are out of their control. A person with a Girdle of Venus could be emotionally sensitive. If the line is doubled or tripled, the increased sensitivity could mean the person is likely to overreact. The bright side of the sensitivity is that these people are often very creative and have the ability to put a lot of emotional energy into whatever they're passionate about. Sometimes these people are perfectionists and even a bit flirtatious. Here's an example of a pretty deep Girdle of Venus, but notice how the right side isn't fully enclosed where the red arrow is pointing, which is a good sign. Looking at the space between the middle finger and ring finger, the loop between these two fingers is called the loop of seriousness. This loop is found on hands of people that are dedicated to their work and career. They are efficient, very responsible, and will think before they act. Here's an example of a loop of seriousness. Moving over to the space between the ring and little finger, we find the loop of humor. This loop is quite common, and it denotes a dry sense of humor, someone with a cheerful disposition. This person probably doesn't take themselves seriously. Here's an example of a loop of humor. Now let's take a look at the mount of Mercury. The space right underneath the little finger, like the mount of Jupiter, there could be a lot of markings here. The marriage or union lines start on the outer edge of the hand, in the space between the base of the little finger and the heart line. The timing on the line starts from the heart line and moves up towards the finger. These lines represent significant relationships in your life. It doesn't necessarily have to be marriage, nor does it have to be a romantic partner. The higher up the line, the later in life the relationship will come. The longer and deeper the line, the more significant the relationship will be to you. And the length of the line represents the length of the relationship. The accuracy of these lines are questionable, so let me know in the comments if you find them to be accurate for you. Here's an example of two marriage lines. The top line is slightly longer than the bottom line. Another sign on the mount of Mercury is the medical stigmata. This shows up as a cluster of 3 to 7 vertical lines. These lines are found on people who are sympathetic and often have a natural ability to heal. The person doesn't necessarily have to be a doctor. They could be a person people turn to for support. These lines can be found on the hands of people in a wide range of careers, everything from a gardener to a vet, psychologists, and masseurs. Here's an example of the medical stigmata where the blue circle is. The family chain can be found where the thumb joins the palm. A chained line looks like it's made up of links. The timing of the line runs vertically from the web of the thumb down towards the wrist. If this line is chained, the person will have strong emotional connections to their family. Oftentimes, the line starts out chained and becomes unchained, meaning as the person gets older, they're less emotionally attached to their family. Here's an example of a family chain. Notice how the line becomes less chained about 2/3 of the way down towards the wrist. Now moving to the mount of Venus, which is the part of the palm at the base of the thumb. Specifically, it's the space between the lifeline and the thumb. Worry lines usually show up as a series of fine lines on this mount, and they start from the thumb side of the hand and move towards the outer edge of the palm. The number of lines can vary from a few to several hundreds. If the line is deep, the person's worry will have a big impact on them. If the line is light, the worries are just minor annoyances. Another thing to look at is to see if the worry lines crosses the lifeline and if it impacts the quality of the lifeline in any way. Check out the lifeline video on the top right or in the description below to learn about the insights we can glean from this line. Here's an example of a hand with many thin worry lines that don't cross over the lifeline except at the beginning, above where the red arrow is pointing. But the worry lines that have crossed over the lifeline doesn't impact the quality of the lifeline, which is a good sign. The lower horizontal lines don't even come close to the lifeline, so those are just minor annoyances for the person. Moving over to the percussion side of the hand under the little finger on the mount of Luna. Here we find the line of intuition. This is a curved line, often found on the hands of psychics, healers, and imaginative writers. These people have extraordinary intuitive abilities. If you have this line, you might have the ability to predict the future. Pay attention to the signs that come in your dreams. Staying on the Mount of Luna, the Via Lasciva is a line or curved line that could mean a few different things. The person could be allergic to certain foods, alcohol, or medication. Or it can mean that the person really needs something exciting to look forward to, which could sometimes lead to overindulgence. Or it could mean that the person has an abundance of energy. Here's an example of a straight Via Lasciva line. Also on the Mount of Luna, we can find the travel lines in the same area we saw the Via Lasciva. The best way to tell the difference between the two is that if there are more than one or two horizontal lines, then the lines are most likely travel lines. Travel lines start on the percussion side of the hand and moves towards the thumb. There could be just a few lines or many lines, and they can be of any length. Typically, if only a few lines are found, the lines are more likely to represent journeys in life that made a lasting impression on the person. If there are a lot of lines, it could mean that the person is restless or is someone who craves change. This person is usually open to different cultures as they find it interesting and exciting. The longer the line, the longer you'll be away and/or the further you'll travel. The deeper the line, the more important the journey will mean to you. Here's an example of a hand with a lot of travel lines. This would be a sign of restlessness, someone who needs excitement in their life. Moving to the center of the palm, right beneath and along the headline. Here we can find the loop of memory. It's a sign of excellent memory. The longer the loop, the stronger the memory. Moving to the wrist, here we can find rosette bracelets. Traditionally, these were thought of as good luck charms, and each line represented about 25 years. The modern interpretation of these bracelets is that it tells us about the health of the organs and our abdominal area, including the lower tummy where the uterus is located. In terms of timing, the line that is closest to the edge of the palm is the first line, and it moves down towards the forearm. This line should only be taken as supplemental information to the lifeline, as that is the line that tells us about the quality of our health. Sometimes the bracelet is chained, and there might even be a slight upward arch towards the middle of the bracelet. This could mean the person should pay attention to the health of their liver, stomach, intestine, bladder, or reproductive organs. Here's an example of a wrist with 4 bracelets. The first 2 are a bit chained, and the bottom 2 are more clear. And finally, let's take a look whether or not you have the potential for fame and fortune. When a standalone star is found on the Mount of Jupiter, shown by the purple star, it is a sign of potential financial success. The person has the potential to enjoy good fortune and maybe even a prestigious position, either through their own efforts or they'll marry into wealth. A person with the star on the Mount of Apollo, the blue star, means the person has potential to not only enjoy good fortune, but also the potential for fame, because this person is likely to be a creative genius. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to share, like, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.